So you jet off to England for the run of the play there.
Yeah.
What's the memory that sticks out to you the most when you think about your time in the UK working on West Side Story?
Oh, I'll tell you what. First of all, I loved working in the UK. We opened in Manchester first, before going to Her Majesty's Theatre in London. And in those days, but the fog was like you saw in Frankenstein. It was really heavy because they had they they later you could only have smokeless fuel in your house, but at that time it was really thick. I remember that. And the opening, Princess Margaret came to one of our previews in London before we opened. I think the day before we opened, and we all got to meet Princess Margaret. I noted what a beautiful woman she was, very beautiful, and then we opened, and there I was playing Riff for. I played a Riff for almost a year before we started hearing the rumors of a movie. And the rumor was, one of the rumors was that for the movie it would be Elizabeth Taylor and so we all thought, well, there's no one Elizabeth Taylor in this group. So obviously, they were big star, no place for us. But one day I got a letter from United Artists asking me to do a test, a film test, and they asked me to do a scene as Riff and a scene as Bernardo. And there were four others in the cast that were also asked to do a movie test. But one day they drove us all out to Elstree Studios outside of London to do our respective tests. And that was such an amazing day. The camera was focused on us individually for our tests, and so it was an extraordinary kind of experience, And when the day was over and all of us had done our tests, we drove back to the theater to go do the show that night, and then the weeks start to go by, and we passed each other in the hallway. Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? Nobody heard anything, and 4 or 5, 6 weeks were going by, and so one night before the performance, there was a call at the stage door. I didn't have a phone in my room. There was a call to the stage from Jerry Robbins, and he said, "We liked your test, but we'd like to test you further." He didn't say for what. And he said, do you think you could get a week's leave of absence? So the London, they let me leave the show for a week to fly to LA to meet Bob Wise and see Jerry and so on. And I also got to see my parents because I hadn't seen them for more than a year. So I went to, it was called Golden Studios at the time here in Los Angeles, and that's where West Side Story was ultimately filmed. So I met Jerry and I met Bob Wise, and both very, very nice. That was on a Monday or Tuesday, and I did my test. I don't remember why I remember this, but I did. It was on a Thursday, and Jerry directed the test. And I tested with a girl whose name was Barbara Luna, who's been quite successful on her own right. But I thought she was really hot tender for Anita because she was so wonderful. So after Thursday, I spent the next couple of days with my parents and then flew back to London at the end of the week to go back into the show. Okay. And then more weeks started going by. More weeks, for quite a few weeks. And Bob Wise did a very nice thing that I don't think most, he didn't have to do it, but he did. It was very, very nice. He sent me a letter. He said, I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, I'm sorry they haven't told you anything yet, but we feel we need to cast the role of Anita before we cast her brother, Bernardo. Well, that made sense to me. So it's just more waiting. And I had fallen in love with tennis at Wimbledon during that time. And I remember on a Friday, I was at Wimbledon with some friends watching, I can't remember, maybe Rod Laver was playing. He was a big tennis player at that time. And I thought to my, it was still early. It was maybe just 4:30 in the afternoon. And something told me, go to the theater. So I left my friends and I went to the theater and I got there way too early for the show. But there was a telegram waiting for me telling me I had the role of Bernardo in the film. So, but by the way, being in England, I loved England. I just loved England. I bought a house outside of Missouri for a while. But the English theatrical community was so great to us. They really welcomed us I'll say, with open arms, and it's true, they really did. So I got to know a lot of people in the English theater community. Albert Finney and Peter O'Toole were rising stars at that time. But we all socialized with each other in people's apartments after different performances, So I was getting to know a lot of people and really appreciating the, I'll say, British humor, which I think is wonder. But just it was just a great time. Yeah.
So you wound up in the movie version playing Bernardo, the leader of the Sharks, whereas previously you'd been playing the role of Riff, the leader of the Jets. What was the switch like for you? Was that just because you'd been on set doing this play for so long? Was it an easy thing for you to do because you've been seeing somebody else do it?
Doing the show for as long as I did, before I did Bernardo, in the speakers in the hallway so that nobody misses the cue, you hear everything that's going on stage. So I was hearing all of it nonstop. I remember I said once to Rita Moreno, I said, I could have played it. Anita, I know this show so well. So to make the switch, I'll say, to Bernardo was somehow very natural to me. And in the beginning, I thought, I don't want to play Bernardo. I love playing Riff. That's what I want to do. But that didn't happen that way. And it was lucky that it didn't happen that way. When you're working on something, and if it's a different role, you have to apply yourself to that role, whatever it is. I was lucky. In the theater production, Riff sings cool. And the American number was done by just the girls. Chita Rivera doesn't get better. And so in the theater version, I got to sing cool. Riff sang cool. In the film version, cool is sung by another character, by a character called Ice, played by Tucker Smith, who was just fantastic. But the good thing about playing Bernardo in the film was the guys were incorporated in the American number, and everybody loves the American number. So that in both cases, it was more meat on the bones, so to speak. So it added to the impression that any actor can make with those roles, because there was just more to do.